I like to start this with a question. How many of you know what air traffic control is? I know some of you are thinking, yeah, those are those guys with the orange flashlights that wave at the planes from here to there. Well, I'd like to give you an insight about what air traffic control really is and what we do. I'd like to show you how we get each and every plane from the ground to the air. I'm going to paint you the picture and I'm going to tell you how every position in the control tower correlates to getting that aircraft from the ground to the air. And now, once you're in the air, you have to land, right? You have to get to your final destination. You need to get on the ground. So the next process I'm going to tell you is how we get each and every aircraft from the air to the ground and how we keep everybody safe. So let me begin with this. In order for a flight to go out and a plane to get from the ground to the air, the first thing they have to do is have what we call the flight plan. This is accomplished on a little rectangular piece of paper that we call a flight progress strip. Now, this flight progress strip is going to have all the pertinent information that you need. It's going to tell you the aircraft's call sign, it's going to tell you what type of aircraft it is, where it's going for the day, all that good stuff. Now, this is where our flight data controller comes in place. He's going to grab that flight strip and he's going to look over it. He's going to make sure that all the information on there is correct and that that plane is actually going to be ready to go for the day. Now, he's also going to put out a recorded message. And in this recorded message, it's going to give the pilots all the information that they need to know for the day. It's going to let them know what the weather is for the day, which way we're flying for the day, how the winds are, everything that they need to know to fly. Now, once he does all that, he's going to pass that flight progress strip over to our ground controller. Now, the ground controller is responsible for making sure all the aircraft get taxied to the runway. So when the aircraft is ready to go, he's going to call up the ground controller and he's going to say something on these lines. He's going to say, Tyndall Tower, Bones 1's ready for taxi on a PM 15. So he tells you what type of departure he's planning on doing for the day. Now, once the ground controller hears this, that's key to let him know that he needs to taxi this aircraft. So he's going to pick up that flight progress strip. He's going to look at the type of aircraft it is, and he's going to begin to taxi him. So once he has that information, he's ready to taxi him, he's going to taxi him out, and he's going to tell him something on the lines of Bones 1, Tyndall Tower, runway 13 right, taxi. Now that that aircraft has that clearance from that ground controller, he's going to start moseying on down and taxi to the runway. Now the ground controller is going to watch the aircraft taxi. He's going to make sure that no other planes are in his way. He's going to make sure that he has a safe route to that runway and make sure that he makes it there okay without any other complications. Now the aircraft is going to taxi on down and he's going to get to the end of the runway. And when he's ready to go, he's going to talk to our new position, which is called the local controller. Okay, the local controller is responsible for that runway. He's going to make sure that that runway is free for that aircraft and that no other planes are coming to it and no other planes are leaving it and nobody's going to cross that airfield or that runway. So when that aircraft gets to the end of the runway and he's ready to depart, he's going to call up our local controller. He's going to say, Tyndall Tower, Bones 1 are ready for departure. Now, once that local controller hears that, that's his key. And it lets him know that, hey, this guy that's holding there is ready to depart. Now I need to make space for him so he can depart. So what he's going to do is he's going to look and scan back and forth, make sure that the runway is clear for the aircraft. And then once he does that, he's going to clear the guy for takeoff. He's going to say Bones 1, Tyndall Tower, runway 13, clear for takeoff. Now once that pilot gets that clearance, he's going to go out on the runway and he's going to depart and get into the sky. Now the local controller just makes sure that nobody else goes through that runway and nobody else comes anywhere near that aircraft while he's departing. So now that your plane has went from the ground to the air, the next thing you have to do is get to your final destination, wherever it may be. You're going to have to land. So in order to land, there's a sequence of events that go on in the control tower cab that I'd also like to explain to you. And this is where we're going to introduce another new position. It's called the coordinator position, which basically he does what the name says, and he coordinates. So his job is going to get the first information on the pilot and the aircraft and who's coming in. And what he's going to find out is he's going to get another one of those flight progress strips, like I showed before, which is going to have all the information that we need from him. It's going to have the call sign. It's going to have the type of aircraft again. But what's key is he's going to find out what type of approach this guy wants to do. Now, we have two main approaches that we run. One is called a straight in approach, where they just line up with the runway and just go down steady and land. Now, another type of approach we have is called an initial approach. And our initial approach is usually reserved for our fighter jets, our faster aircraft. They're going to come over the top of the runway at 370 miles per hour. And they're just going to make a little base turn, and then they're just going to come in and land. This gets them to the runway a lot faster than most aircraft. So while they're flying really fast, this helps them to get there faster. Now, once the coordinator got all that information, he's going to pass it over to the local controller again. Now, this is where the fun begins for the local controller, because there's a lot he has to do. He may have to sequence this aircraft with other planes. So he starts what we call as a traffic pattern. And he has to decide who's number one to the runway, who's number two to the runway, 3, 4, and so on, depending on how many people we have in the aircraft, in the airspace. Now, this can become very difficult depending on the type of aircraft you have. If you have fast airplanes mixed with slow airplanes, and hey, it can get a little difficult. So the local controller's job is going to create that pattern, and he's going to get the aircraft to the runway quickest and the safest way possible. So what he's going to do is he's going to talk to that first aircraft, and he's going to give him a reporting point. So he's going to, for instance, it'll be Bones 1 again. He's going to say, Bones 1, report at 5 mile final, runway 13. And Bones 1 just going to basically say Roger, which means I understand. Now, once Bones 1 gets to that 5 mile final, the local controller is going to clear him to land. Bones 1 will report it. He'll say Bones 1, Tyndall Tower, 5 mile final, runway 13. Now, the local controller hears that. He knows it's time to clear him to land. So the local controller is going to say Bones 1, runway 13, and then he's going to give him the winds. He's going to tell him, clear to land. So now once he gets that information, the pilot's just going to continue on his approach and get to the runway and land. All the while, the local controller is making sure that his approach to the runway is safe and nobody else is in his way and nobody else is going to be on the runway when he gets there. Now, after that aircraft lands, he's going to start to slow down. He's going to find the nearest taxiway he can get to, and he's going to get off. Now, once he gets off, he's going to talk to the ground controller. Now, the ground controller's portion of this is very simple. The ground controller is basically going to taxi him to park. So Bones 1 will get off, and he'll say Bones 1, ready to park. And then the ground controller is going to look. He's going to scan the airfield. He's going to make sure nobody's in the way, and he's going to let him taxi to park. So he'll just say Bones 1, Tyndall ground taxi to park. And it's very simple for the ground controller at this point. And after that, all the ground controller has to do is watch him go to parking, make sure nobody's in his way. And there you have it. That's basically all you have to do to get an aircraft from the air to the ground. It can be a little complicated at times, but for the most part, it's pretty simple. So the next thing I want you to do is think about the next time you're going on vacation. You get to your airport, wherever it may be, LAX, JFK, it depends on where you live. And I want you to think to yourself about getting on that airplane. And you feel yourself begin to taxi. Can you remember the steps that it took for you to begin that taxi? You remember that flight data controller actually has your flight plan, and that's why you're able to taxi. And know that that ground controller is watching you taxi, and he's making sure nobody else is in your way. Now, once you feel yourself get airborne, you were cleared for takeoff by that local controller. And you also know, again, that that local controller is watching out for your aircraft, and he's watching out for each and every passenger in that plane and make sure everyone is safe. Now, when you get to your final destination, whether it be Hawaii, Walt Disney World, wherever you like, um, what's going to happen can you remember the sequence of events that's going to happen to get you to land? Remember that the coordinator's got your flight plan. He's passing that information over to that local controller, and that local controller is getting you into a traffic pattern and keeping everybody safe. And then he's going to clear you to land. And then once you land, you're going to talk to your ground controller again, and he's going to taxi you to park. So now that you know how the air traffic control works, the next time somebody comes and that conversation about air traffic control pops up, I want you to think to yourself, hey, I know the actual process, and those aren't the guys that actually have the orange flashlights and taxi the planes. Thank you guys for listening to what I have to say, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.